Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, I am showing you a really exciting new Pokemon, and it's actually a first. It is the very first ever Artozolt card we've ever seen in the Pokemon trading card game. Now, this was obviously one of the new fossil Pokemon, the weird, messed up, not quite right fossil Pokemon from Generation 8, from Sword and Shield. They've not made its way into a set yet. They're making its way here, and there is a lot to love here about Artozolt. Now, starting off with the basics, we've got 130 HP, which is exactly what we want, because there's too many Pokemon that naturally hit 120. We've got a retreat cost of 2, which means we've got Air Balloon. We've got weakness to fighting. And I'll be honest with you, Pikachu and Zekrom is coming back better nowadays, and Eternatus VMAX is coming. Surely at some point, we're going to start seeing some fighting counter decks, and Artozolt will get caught in the crossfire here. But you are a lightning Pokemon now pre-rotation, and there is a very short window between this coming out and the rotation. You've got Electro Power for extra damage. You've got Thunder Mountain to reduce your attack cost. Post-rotation, you will still have Tapu Koko to accelerate energy. So it's not all bad, but it's a lot better to be lightning pre-rotation. Now, in terms of the attack here, we're not going to get terribly excited. We'll mention it briefly in a moment. We're not going to get too into it. What we are excited about is the ability, and our translation here comes from the lovely Joe from Cerebi.net, who I owe a rather large apology to. It was Joe that provided my Scrafty translation recently, and he was not credited as such. I'm sorry, Joe. I'm very sorry. I've already told Joe he forgave me. Joe's a nice dude. So, what does the ability say? As long as this Pokemon is in play, whenever your opponent attaches an energy from their hand to one of their Pokemon, place 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. Oh. Yeah, we've seen this ability before, ladies and gentlemen. We've seen it on Jolteon. This is literally Jolteon's ability. Here's the thing, though. There is a gigantic difference between this and any Pokemon we've seen with this ability previously. This doesn't have to be active. This is an ability that works from the bench. And that is, it's huge for 2 reasons. First of all, we might not want to attack with it, and most of the time we don't want to attack with it. But also, it stacks. If you've got to be active to use this ability, it can't stack because you cannot have more of one of them in the active. There was a time back before Diamond and Pearl went away that we did have a doubles format and you could have multiple active Pokemon. We've not been in that situation for a while. It's 1-on-1 now. So now we've got a stacking ability, which instantly makes it better than Jolteon. And look, I like that Jolteon. I like the fact that it's got free retreat and it's a stage 1 and all of that good stuff. But honestly, the attack for Jolteon was never quite good enough. The thing is, 2 energy, 90 damage, discard all energy, it's fine, but it's not a big powerhouse attack. Well, now we don't care how good the attack is. This dude can just sit on your bench and use the ability and roll. Now, one of the very important things we need to mention here is that this is when your opponent attaches an energy from their hand to one of their Pokemon. From their hand. Which means attaching usually, yes, they will take the damage. It means if they use Welder to attach extra energy from their hand, they will take the damage. If they use Hydreigon, it's got the ability, like stuff like Emboar's had in the past, to attach extra energy from their hand, yes, they will take the damage. But if they're attaching from the deck or from the discard pile, it will not work. So if your opponent plays something like a red or blue to accelerate a couple of energy, this won't be good enough. It's not going to work. But a lot of the time, they're going to be attaching from their hand. This is ridiculous. Now, we know it stacks because it was shown over on the Japanese video, and they did actually show it with Casola and 4 of these. Now, this is probably a good time to remind you about Galarian Casola V. It's the same as this, except it's free damage counters, and it does have to be active. And what I told you about Casola at the time was, look, we've seen Pokemon like this in the past. And unfortunately, they've never ended up being good enough. I could show you the Gengar from Crimson Invasion that had the same ability. And interesting to note, Gengar did not have to be active, but Gengar was a Stage 2. And Stage 2s are way more awkward than Stage 1s. Yes, I know it's a fossil, we'll get there in a moment. And we've seen this ability on Ampharos in the past, but again, Ampharos is a Stage 2, and that's not good enough. It also had to be active and was free damage counters. It seems very much like the rule here is, if you've got to be active for the ability to work, you get 3 damage counters per energy. If you don't, it's 2 damage counters per energy. But you don't have to be active to get it working. It's so good. Now, let's say you've got a Galarian Casola in the active and 4 Artozolt on the bench. Your opponent takes 11 damage counters just to attach an energy. Which means there are plenty of Pokemon out there, like, I don't know, Zapdos comes to mind, where you can't attach an energy, because if you do, you get KO'd and give up a prize, which is a bit silly. If you welder onto a Pokemon, you take 22 damage counters. I mean, something like Reshiram and Charizard, if they attached free energy, they take 330 damage and be KO'd. Now, to be fair, what they would actually do is welder to take 220 damage, and then use Outrage to do 250, but then they'd have a free prize Pokemon with 50 HP remaining, so actually, no, they definitely wouldn't do that. That would go very, very badly, very, very quickly. And yes, obviously, it's difficult to get 4 of these on the bench. But look at the rewards. And I know we could have done this with the Gengar from Crimson Invasion, but we were never getting 4 Stage 2s on the bench. That was never realistic. This is actually realistic, because you're only talking about a Stage 1. And then the attack doesn't matter. Now, Galarian Casola's attack is... it's fine. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's not anything special. It's fine. 2 energy, 60 damage, plus you drop 3 damage counters anywhere you like on your opponent's bench. But then again, if they're taking cheeky damage from attaching energy, then you're going to be able to use the extra damage counters to put them in an awkward situation. I do really like that. Although annoyingly, Spell Tag will be rotating around about the time this all gets rolling, because that is an extra 4 damage counters when Casola goes down, assuming your opponent doesn't use a Tool Scrapper. Fingers crossed for that one. And then that would really help with the cheeky damage theory here. Unfortunately, it's just not working. It's going away. But now, all of a sudden, this attack looks way better. And look, Casola's got a bad weakness and 190 HP and not a great attack, but 11 damage counters when they attach an energy. Of course, what you could do is just ignore Casola altogether, just use Artozolt here, and have any other Pokemon in the active. Have something like Galarian Weezing, for instance. You poison your opponent, they take 4 damage counters between turns. Oh yeah, but also Galarian Weezing turns off all of your opponent's abilities. It does not turn off your abilities, though, otherwise it'd be kind of pointless playing it. As long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent's Pokemon have no abilities except for neutralizing gas. So maybe here you just sit and poison them with Weezing, while Artozolt just really punishes them for attaching energy. And then they've got no abilities or any of that. That could be so much fun. Although we probably need to address the fact that it's a fossil now, don't we? It's a Stage 1. It evolves from a fossil. No, Pokemon Research Lab will not work. And the thing here is extremely simple. Pokemon Research Lab specifically refers to Pokemon that evolve from unidentified fossil, and this does not evolve from unidentified fossil. Simple as that. So unfortunately, this will not work with Pokemon Research Lab. If it did, oh my goodness, that would be amazing, because you could then use this stadium to put 2 of them out, turn 1 going first, and then if your opponent attached any energy, they'd be taking 4 damage counters on their first turn. That would be kind of hilarious. Unfortunately, no. It does not evolve from unidentified fossil, so it doesn't work. So you've got the usual awkwardness of it's evolving from a fossil, and that means that you can't search it out with Quick Ball because it's not a basic Pokemon. It's harder to find and all of that. There's nothing to stop using Green's Exploration in the early game. Obviously, you can't use it when you've got abilities down, but use it before then. There's plenty of ways to make it working, build a speed deck, etc. It is slightly more awkward to get into play, but honestly, we've got so many great options for speed nowadays that we can make really fast decks, and I don't think it's a big deal. I'm giving this 4 Wassies. No, we haven't talked about the attack. 2 energy, 70 damage. Nobody cares. It's not why you're playing the card. I like this. If it worked in the active, I wouldn't like it. I'd be saying just play Galarian Casola. It's not good. But it works on the bench, and it stacks. And now, all of a sudden, we are looking at putting your opponent in a situation where they either don't attach energy, they can't win the game, or they do attach energy, and they take so much damage that they can't win the game. Either way, this is a Pokemon that could completely wreck your opponent, and that amuses me greatly. But I'd like to know what you think about it, ladies and gentlemen, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice, and then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darned awesome nonetheless. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.